From UDO in partnership with TSN, welcome to episode 39 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Darren Greger along with Ray Ferraro. We've got St. Louis Blues head coach Craig Berube joining episode 39 a little bit later. The always entertaining Ask Ray and Dregs Anything segment coming up, and a ton of things to digest. We'll get to the heavy lifting, Ray, in just a moment. But because we're on this Zoom chat, I can see this enormous picture behind you. Clearly, it's a collection of your career statistics, because I can see the montage of pictures there, that beautiful New York Islanders uniform, great jersey. And then I think I can see your stat line behind your head. And
right.
If my eyes aren't deceiving me, zoom in if you can for us, because it looks to me like it's an NHLPA gift, because I can see the logo. And
can you see the whole poster here, Dregs?
Well, pretty much I can see it.
If I knew what I was doing, like, how about right
No,
there?
you're doing well. You're doing well. Oh, no. Okay. I see it.
You see
spelling error.
Okay, let me get uptight here. So the NHLPA gave this to me, or two players, when I retired.
Yeah.
And so if you can see in right where my name is spelled.
Yeah, a little closer. It's not quite clear enough. Getting a bit of a reflection.
There
you go.
Yeah. They spelled my name wrong.
Ferraro. That's not right.
The double R's are in the wrong place. So in October or November of 2002, when I retired, this enormous box shows up at the door, and it turns out to be this. Now, it was amazing timing, because I was just started my retirement, and it was a pretty low spot, I guess. And so it's got the 6 pictures of the teams I played for. It's got a Canadian history timeline, an NHL history timeline, and my life timeline, born and till the time I retired. It's got my goals and assists, and it was a really great thing. Well, we noticed it's spelt wrong, and Cammie says, "Hey, we got to get this, send it back, or get them to reprint that." I go, "No, you know what? I kind of like it." Yeah. So I kind of like that it's misspelled.
Well, look, I mean, I know Johnny Weatherden and the great people at the NHLPA listen to the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, so there's no question you're getting another one. And
no, I like the misspelled one.
Well, but that one is going to be worth a fortune. I mean, you're going to be with us you're going to be with us for a long time. And I know that you don't dip into your wallet very often, so your kids are going to be looked after. But imagine when you pass in 50 years from now. That thing might be worth a lot of money. Reese and Riley, you need to be looked after.
Yeah, I got my I got my doubts that thing's going to be worth much, except to me. And so I love it though, because otherwise, I didn't want to build a shrine to me. Oh, everybody come and look at my career, right? Yeah. Like we don't have much memorabilia up at all. Cammie's got one of her gold medal jerseys. I've got my Team Canada jersey and an all-star jersey and this. And I like that everything is contained. I think they did a beautiful job with it.
So you didn't keep a stick or any of that? I mean, again, all kidding aside, 108 goals for the Brandon Wheat Kings in one season. You didn't...
I have nothing.
Nothing? You don't have a puck? You don't have anything?
No, nothing. My first goal puck, I'm sure, ended up in a snowbank somewhere. I don't... I have my jerseys. Some of them, as I mentioned, are on the wall. Some of them are in one of those plastic tubs. Yeah. And they're in the back. Cammie's medals, she won't let me put them up. I'm not exactly sure where they are. They're probably in in her bedside table or something.
Yeah.
They're not displayed.
Do you get to touch them every once in a while? You guys as former NHL players have this crazy sort of superstition when you're playing, you don't touch the Stanley Cup. A buddy wins it, brings it, you go to his house to enjoy the party, but you don't touch it because you haven't earned
Never won it. Never earned it. Right.
So you wouldn't touch it? Even if you go to the Hall of Fame, you're really?
No, I don't know. I think it's one of the really cool, endearing, and enduring tradition of the Cup. And I admire those guys that have won so much. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have been there, and I wish I could have done it. And if I would have won the Stanley Cup, I would have 18,000 pictures of me with it.
Right.
However, I didn't win it. And so
Okay,
I can
so
see
hold
it. It's a
on.
beautiful trophy.
Landon wins the Stanley Cup.
Oh, I'm holding
And
the Stanley Cup.
yeah, of course you are. There you go. I was going to say you're going to take a sip of champagne or orange juice
Yeah.
or whatever they drink.
If it's your kids, man, it would be better than you doing it, I think.
Right. All right, we've had some good fun here to open episode 39 of the Ray and Dregs podcast, but now to the heavy lifting. And it's been a week, hasn't it, Ray? It's been a week, last couple of weeks in the world, first and foremost. But in our world, the sporting world, it's been an interesting few days. And it starts on Wednesday with the NBA players, I should be specific, courageously showing solidarity and telling their owners and establishment of the NBA, we're not playing basketball. It's time for us to take a stand because our words aren't getting through. Our actions maybe will help raise awareness to the injustice that we continue to see in North America, specific to Jacob Blake and what went down in the United States. But, the NBA and its players decide to boycott, not play games this week. And the NBA postpones games this week. The National Hockey League plays games on Wednesday. And then yesterday, NHL players decide, okay, we need to take a stand. And collectively, they tell the National Hockey League, we're not playing tonight, be it Thursday night. And the NHL says, fine, we're okay with that. But then let's postpone Thursday and Friday so that all 8 teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs are impacted the same. So first of all, your thoughts on the NBA players doing what they did, and subsequently NHL players doing something similar, albeit a day late. Any concern with the fact that there were games played in the National Hockey League on Wednesday night?
Okay, well, I'll start with the NBA players, which really it started with the Milwaukee Bucks, as they were the first team to say, hey, we're not going to play. The shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, of course, Milwaukee is in Wisconsin, and they decided they were trying to get a hold of the Attorney General, and it just, they said, we're not playing. And then their opponent said, okay, we'll support you. And then boom, everybody was in support. So when they walked out, I don't have the times exactly right, Dregs, maybe you have them, but they were pretty much at start time for the Boston-Tampa Bay game. So it would have been really virtually impossible for the NHL players, the Boston and Tampa players, to get this together for their game. So I didn't have a problem with them playing that first game. I didn't think the Dallas-Colorado game should have gone off. Even if it was only to Dregs, buy you some time to say, okay, what does our response really need to be? What do we want to do? What are our players thinking? Because it's funny, it's 5 hours, or 4 hours, whatever the time frame was, but man, that went fast. And if you're trying to make a momentous decision like that, it goes very quickly. You got to get the information to the right people at the right times, enough detailed information. And, I thought they should have taken a pause on that Dallas-Colorado game. So there was an event. The event was that the players from the NBA and the WNBA, Major League Soccer, they boycotted on Wednesday. The NHL was late to the event. I'm glad they're at the event, even though they were late to it. I know there's always they should have done this. And not just the NHL, it seems in anything these days. Right. They should have done this. They should have done that. Hindsight, of course, we know is perfect, and everybody's got a great idea after the fact. However, they got there, and I'm glad they got there. And now the real push is to stay, not to show up and disappear. The one thing I will say about this, Dregs, is, again, like pretty much everything, it gets politicized very quickly.
It does.
Keep politics out of sports, and except the players are in life. They're not just in sports. We know them as in sports. Yeah. And I'll give you a great example is Doc Rivers, the basketball coach. I heard him on this other podcast Flying Coach, it's called, with Steve Kerr and Pete Carroll. And it's really got some terrific stuff on it. And it's a limited run one. But Doc Rivers was one of the guests. And Doc Rivers talked about growing up, and his father was a Chicago cop. And he talked with all this detail. And I'm like, man, I didn't know anything about that. I just knew Doc Rivers was a really good NBA guard and was a really good is a really good coach. My point being that it's impossible to say to the players in the sport world anymore, just stick to sports, because their life is their life. And I thought Jason Dickinson verbalized something that was really difficult to verbalize. And I thought he did a really good job when he was asked, why are the NHL players later to this? And correct me if I get this a little wrong, but he said that, we're a sport that is, predominantly white. A lot of the issues that the NBA and WNBA players are talking about, our players have never come into contact with. And so their understanding and awareness is slower. And it's got to get there. But I thought it was a really good point, not to absolve anybody, but to say, hey, this has not touched most of our community.
Yeah.
Most of the hockey community.
Yeah.
And that in itself is another discussion. But I thought it was really well verbalized. But now what I saw, and what we saw in particular, the Western players, the Eastern players had their press conference, and then the Western players collaboratively went out behind Nazem Kadri and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and Ryan Reeves. I just thought that was amazing.
Awesome. Well, so I look at, and on Wednesday, I could understand the emotion and the frustration from certain parts of media, just giving it to the National Hockey League for a missed opportunity. And I understand that. And I would echo what you said about there was time to digest for the late game, and they could have made the adjustment. But that's behind everybody now. So you focus on not only today, but moving forward. And for me, this has been a bit of an eye-opening experience, but I think we should expect more from several people. Let's start with hockey here. The National Hockey League has to embrace and do more with the Hockey Diversity Alliance, the HDA. Moving forward, there has to be more done. They have to respect the communication and the needs of the HDA, and do more to address those needs and concerns. And then furthermore, and this is where I get a little bit angry, to be fair, NHL players took it between the eyes on Wednesday. The National Hockey League, the owners, everybody associated with the NHL, and us as media, who weren't as loud or as offended, also were targeted in the negative reaction. But what about our political leaders, right? Why should the Prime Minister of this country, Canada, Justin Trudeau, not be held accountable? Why does he get to sit in silence when he could enact and he could affect change? He could do something about this. The premiers across the country, Doug Ford, here in Ontario, did a terrific job in helping manage COVID-19. Well, the great city of Toronto isn't immune to this type of injustice and these type of scenarios. Why can't our political leaders stand up and say, all right, on my watch, this isn't happening? Or when it does happen, I am going to hold these individuals, no matter who they are or what their job is, accountable to the full extent of the law. Why do these guys get a free pass when NHL players, pro athletes, coaches, general managers, owners, and NHL executives are being held accountable via social media or elsewhere?
Well, I'm going to make a comparison, and it's not exactly the same, but I think it's similar. When you talk to parents about their kids' sport, and you've had, you've gone through minor hockey with Mason, how passionate and involved the parents are.
Yeah.
And if you ask them about their schoolwork, they don't get it. They're like, oh yeah, I got a parent-teacher meeting or something or other. But they can tell you when the kids' practices are 18 days down the road. We're all guilty of that, I think, or a lot of us are.
Agreed.
So it's the same thing. We're looking to 20-year-old to 30-year-old, generally speaking, men and women, athletes, to lead social change. And then we get pissed off at them by quote unquote not staying in their lane. So there are political leaders. That's what they're elected for. They're elected. And I read this once or saw it recently. It said, you're elected to lead us on our worst day.
Mm-hmm.
And there is unrest. There is social injustice. There is racial unrest. Like this is not to athletes to lead. To be involved, yes. And man, it takes courage to do what they're doing. Yeah. But the leaders, the political leaders, the owners of leagues, the owners of teams, they need to lead. Yeah. You can't just lead when it's easy to lead. And unfortunately, that all comes together, right? Like it's hard. I look at there's some owners in the NBA that have opened up their arenas for polling stations. Yeah. Come November. That's a tangible thing they can do to help. And I'm like, good for them. Because it's not going to all be one enormous brush that fixes everything, but it's going to take a bunch of little things. And you're 100% right, Dregs. It's starting politically. The leaders at the top have to lead.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate that we have to spend the time that we have on a podcast talking about this, but credit to all of the figures in sport, the players especially, who have showed the courage and are taking a stand. And it's a good thing that we're talking about it, because talk will lead to action. And that's entirely what's needed moving forward.
Well, I would just want to tag it with this, Dregs, is like the Hockey Diversity Alliance basically is saying, we just want more opportunity for young people of color to be able to get into the game, to play. We want, as we move up through the ranks, we want to have transparency in the hiring processes, to know that visible minorities are getting an opportunity to interview for these jobs, and how are those interviews going? First step is going to be a big one, right? Because there's never been anything like this before. And so if the league can support the initiatives, or as many of the initiatives as they can, then that's going to be that big step forward. And then it's going to take time, but the money has to go to the grassroots, so that young people get the opportunity to play, no matter where they come from, what their skin colors are. They get the opportunity to get in and love the game. Right. And once they love the game, it's going to become something greater. That, to me, is what the Hockey Diversity Alliance is really, really striving to achieve. One of their main goals.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to updates as those conversations and hopefully the actions between the National Hockey League specifically and the HDA occur moving forward. We've got Craig Berube, the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, coming up on the podcast, as well as Ask Ray and Dregs. As we let you know last week, Tim Hortons NHL Superstar Collectible Sticks are back. Featured players this year with the locker boxes and mini sticks include Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, Carey Price, Alex Ovechkin, Mitch Marner, Nate McKinnon. Now, they've got a great contest underway as well, Ray, as we know. If you get a golden mini stick, you will win either a game-used stick from Sidney Crosby, or a limited edition vintage Tim Horton replica mini hockey stick. So Tim Hortons NHL Superstar Collectible Sticks are back for a limited time, only while supplies last, $5.99 each. They're available in restaurants and through the drive-thru and on the Tim Hortons app. And we've got some feedback on social media on this. Tim's created a very limited number, rightfully so, of the Ray and Dregs locker boxes with Ferraro and Dreger stuff inside them. And let's start with you, because I know you've got your locker box handy. I just saw it.
Oh, yeah.
Give us some stats. I can't read. It's blurry behind you. You've got your career stats. So what does it say inside your Tim Hortons locker box?
Well, first of all, pretty nice picture, the Islander picture there.
Yeah.
Now, if this were out when I was playing, my teammates would say, "Oh, isn't that neat? Life-size poster." it would be so. It's so obvious.
It would be.
Like that is, Dregs, when you go into a hockey arena and you go into the bathroom in the dressing rooms and they have the one urinal that's lower,
Right.
for the little kids. 99 times out of 100, there would be a piece of tape over that and it would say Ferraro. I'd walk in there, same thing over and over. Anyway, I love the locker box. It's got the gold stick on the back of the Islander jersey. I love the blue jersey, and it's got my, I was born in Trail, BC, shoot left, 1,258 games, 408 goals, 490 assists. Man,
Nice.
if I had better wingers, Dregs, I would have had more assists. Couldn't have been me.
What's your favorite Tim's run? What does it say at the bottom?
What's that? Oh, I don't have my favorite one.
Ooh, maybe they
What's
just
yours?
had to put. Well, maybe they had to put that on mine because I don't have any hockey stats.
Well, they could have had on yours how many trades you've broken or things.
Well, that would just.
Okay, so what is your Tim's run?
It's a regular coffee, so it's a regular medium.
Yep.
And when I'm feeling less fat, I get a chocolate chunk cookie. And so Matt Hanley out here in Brooklyn, Ontario, he owns all of the local Brooklyn Tim Hortons stores, right?
Yeah.
So when they run out of the chocolate chunk cookie, I text him immediately. It pisses him off endlessly because I'm like, Matty, come on, you're out of the cookies. Like what kind of operation are you trying to run here? Like you can't.
Right, I drive into Tim Hortons. I can't walk away without a box of Timbits. Even
like,
when I'm
many?
like 10.
Oh, see, that's selfish. Well, like, why wouldn't you buy like the big box so you can take some home to Reese and Riley and Cammie?
The problem is
and the
because
grandkids.
The bigger box would still get eaten on the way.
Right.
I can't stop.
I've seen you. I can visualize.
I can't stop.
So mine also says, so it says Langeberg, Saskatchewan. Just take a crack at how I'm described as a hockey player.
Blue collar, strong winger.
Close. Rugged right winger. Rugged.
You know what that means? The puck is not your friend.
Yeah. So when I got a letter inviting me to, I think it was a Nipple and Hawks camp in like 84 or something like that. That was basically what it said. You could tell it was a form letter, right? That it was sent to like 200 people. And because the font was different, it was like an electric typewriter. So two of the paragraphs were the same font size.
Right.
And then the last paragraph it was like one line. We like your aggressiveness and strong play on the wing, something like that. So they actually personalized it with about 6 words.
Oh, there you go. And then it made you feel good, though, didn't it?
Yeah. So next week, we'll be telling you how you can score a set of these custom Ray and Dregs lockers and also qualify for some other cool prizes from us here at the Ray and Dregs pod as well. So we've got our headlines coming up, Ray, and they're brought to you by our pals at Boston Pizza and their popular pizza flights available for a limited time. 3 pizzas, 3 dips. You choose your za lineup, and they'll go real well, of course, in the sunshine on the patio with a nice cold brew or playoff-sized fishbowl cocktail. It's still patio weather here in Ontario. I mean,
here too, Dregs. We're getting a good run.
Is that right?
Right now.
You don't have the humidity, I don't think, in BC
we don't.
that we have in. So the fishbowl cocktails are dangerous. You got to drink responsibly because when you're hot, you're sitting on the patio at BP and you're just pulling on that straw. Like it's just constant fishbowl. So one fishbowl, do not drive. That's the warning from the Ray and Dregs podcast.
When it's hot, you can run into issues in a hurry.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, we're going to charge through the headlines here, Ray. Starting with Arizona. So the National Hockey League slaps the Arizona Coyotes, I would say appropriately and aggressively. They lose a second-round draft pick in 2020, a first-round pick in 2021 for being found guilty of effectively cheating, right, by fitness testing draft-eligible players. Hard enough, or did you expect that there might be more, maybe a financial penalty that was the discretion of Commissioner Bettman?
No, I thought it was pretty hefty, Dregs. And the reason I didn't suspect there was going to be, or didn't guess there was going to be a fine with it, is the penalties being harsh enough, and that in between when the transgressions occurred and the handing down of the decision, if you will, the ownership changed. And so you're asking the new owner to pay for something that went on before he was in charge.
Yeah.
And so I found that the draft pick penalties were plenty enough.
Good. And look, I don't disagree with you. When you look at the Arizona Coyotes situation, it's a mess. Their cap situation is a mess. I mean, there's a ton of work for Steve Sullivan or whoever ends up being the long-term general manager of the Arizona Coyotes. So I was okay with it. And I don't think that front office has completely changed yet. And so if it's Sullivan moving forward, I think that you're going to see a restructuring of that front office. So for anybody who wonders if there are individuals there who were left behind that were involved in the pre-draft testing, maybe that changes in the future moving forward as well. Kasperi Kapanen traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins by the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think Kyle Dubas did well here. Creates cap space. He gets a first-round draft pick. Philippe Hollander is a 20-year-old center who the Toronto Maple Leafs think is going to be a good NHL player. Obviously, they get some other elements, Rodriguez, some other pieces part of that. So speak to what the Toronto Maple Leafs get in this deal and whether or not you think Jimmy Rutherford got enough in return in Kasperi Kapanen.
You outlined the Toronto haul of this. And the cap space was critical, of course. That gives them now over $7 million in cap room or so to start addressing their holes in their lineup. Now they're going to have to replace Kapanen's third line position on the team, but that's not going to be with a $3.2 million winger. That's going to be a more cost-effective player. That money can go towards the defense, which clearly needs to be upgraded. They got a first-round pick in a really good draft, but also a pick that they had to replenish because they didn't have one. They traded that away in the Patrick Marleau deal. Yeah. So they're still dancing around trying to get enough draft picks to make their team competitive and better now. And I thought Dubas did a really good job. I think my personal opinion is Kasperi Kapanen is a good NHL player, but he's a third line player. He's limited in his ability to see the ice and make the play at the speed that he goes at. Now, maybe he'll be a player like Pascal Dupuis was for Sidney Crosby.
Right.
Because Pascal Dupuis was a third line checker until he went to Pittsburgh. And then him and Chris Kunitz became perfect wingers for Sid because they retrieved pucks and they went fast. And so if Kapanen can figure that out and learn to play like that, that's, I think, in the area where Jimmy Rutherford's hoping that he can play.
Yeah.
I just don't know that Kapanen will be able to do it. If he can, it's a really good trade for Pittsburgh. They can't be, they blow out draft picks in Pittsburgh like crazy, but they can't be sitting around and really planning for future. It's hard to believe Sid the Kid is 34.
I know.
Right? Like, or 33. Like, how did that happen? Geno Malkin's a year older.
Yeah.
Like they got to get at it now.
So you do a ton of radio around North America, but a lot in Toronto on Overdrive on a daily basis. And so you can appreciate it's no different in Vancouver or in any Canadian market. You talk about the local club and you analyze and you try and identify the areas of need and what the general manager might consider moving forward. Well, since this Kasperi Kapanen trade, Leafs Nation has been in a frenzy trying to figure out, okay, well, what might Dubas do next? And, you identified their most pressing need, and that's paying attention to the blue line. And some of that's going to happen organically with Tyson Barrie moving on and Cody Ceci likely moving on. But what's curious about this, and I know it to be fact because I trust my sources, and because we've mentioned it on radio earlier this week, it's become a story. The Maple Leafs definitely would consider a goaltending upgrade. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, if there's a goalie out there that makes you better, I mean, that's your job as a general manager. It just seems a little bit early for me to be thinking that you've seen everything that Freddie can do. But maybe that's the reality. Maybe Freddie Anderson is a really good NHL goaltender, but he's not great. And he's not the answer, or you don't believe as an organization he's going to lead you deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs, because that speculation isn't just media speculation, Ray. It's real. I don't think that Dubas is shopping Freddie Anderson, but if there was an upgrade available, or if there is going to be an upgrade available, I think most definitely the Toronto Maple Leafs will consider that. Do you think that's wise? Do you spend assets in that area?
Well, you're not spending assets. Your asset is Freddie Anderson. The replacement likely becomes one of the multitude of goaltenders that are available. This fall off season is going to be different for it's different every year, but some years there's no goalies available. This year, on Overdrive yesterday, Dregs, we came up, Jamie McLennan mostly came up with about 8 or 10 guys that are going to be available.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh's going to trade one of their goalies.
Crazy.
Jim Rutherford has already said that. Braden Holtby, Thomas Greiss likely will be available. Colorado's got to do something in goal, most likely. Vancouver's got Jacob Markstrom as a free agent. And if they sign him, they got to do something with Thatcher Demko then before the expansion draft of the following year. Cam Talbot, Mike Smith. I'm trying to go through here. Winnipeg, Calgary, Ottawa.
I mean, there's a ton of teams.
Jamie got to 8 pretty quickly. Like Boston, I assume is going to have to do something with their goaltending, whether they're going to bring back both Rask and Jarro Halak. So, to trade Freddie Anderson, sure, I can see why. It's been 4 years, right? They just haven't gotten over a hump with him in goal, and at times he's been part of the issue. But you can't bring back it makes no sense to bring back a goalie that's not a clear upgrade for longer term.
Yeah.
You've got Freddie till the end of next year. If you can't upgrade that, don't add term to someone similar. It would be my tact.
Well, I want a quick thought out of you on Mike Green, who retired after 15 seasons in the NHL in a moment here. But see, we'll talk about this in another podcast. I think Vancouver's missed the mark on Markstrom here because they didn't engage early enough. And based on his play and based on everything you just said, I think Jacob Markstrom is going to be a super hot commodity as a free agent. So if Vancouver's going to keep this guy, they're going to overpay to keep him. That's the reality of that situation.
Yeah, he has been brilliant for Vancouver.
All right, Mike Green opted out of the return to play with the Oilers for a bunch of reasons. Health, family, a lot of reasons. 34 years old, 880 NHL games, 501 points, 150 goals. Man, when he was healthy in his prime, he was just fun to watch. I mean, he had his moments of being a liability out there as an NHL defenseman, but he was rightly in the Norris Trophy conversations when he was at his peak.
31 goals the 1 year. 31 goals for a defenseman. So he ran that Washington power play with Ovechkin and Backstrom when they were all kids.
Yeah.
And that's, now it's John Carlson up at the top, but before that it was Mike Green. And now he played a style that, defense was a starting point and a suggestion at some times. And man, he was all over the place. He could pass the puck. He could really shoot it. You know what image I have of him is when him and Ovechkin were really young, those two knuckleheads used to race the equipment cart.
Yeah.
And they'd race it underneath the big door. And a couple of times they would get there and they'd have to lean sideways to just make it under. I'm like, look at these guys, they're 2 years old, and there they are in the big equipment cart. And I'm like, man, Washington's management must have looked at them barreling down there and gone, that's our leaders right there.
No kidding. Again, thanks to Boston Pizza for taking us into headlines here in episode 39. Before we break for Craig Berube of the St. Louis Blues, Ray, time to name our players, our playoff performers of the week. And I love playing the role of Captain Obvious because I'm good at it. I'm going with Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And not just because of one specific game. I mean, just the playoffs in general and how creative and magical this guy is. I mean, he's a dog on the puck. You know, if he doesn't have that puck, he's going to get the puck. And he's one of those gifted offensive players that seemingly can create something out of just about nothing. So we see that shift by shift from Braden Point. So he's my doer playoff performer of the week. How about you?
You know, in Vancouver, a lot of people are talking about Quinn Hughes, where he's had just amazing playoff, but Elias Pettersson has been brilliant. I mean, it's his first playoff too. And after Vegas steamrolled Vancouver in game one, and it looked like Vancouver was overmatched. In game two, Pettersson comes out, has 3 points, is a dominant performer in the game, sets up Tyler Toffoli 9 seconds into Toffoli's return for a goal, hits a crossbar, misses a breakaway, all over the place. 16 points in his first 10 playoff games. He's my doer performer of the week.
All right, Elias Pettersson and Braden Point, our doer playoff performers of the week. Hey, when you want performance denim, you got to go with Doer, the world's most comfortable pants. You can use code RAY to get 15% off everything site-wide at doer.ca. That's code RAY to get 15% off site-wide at doer.ca. Our interview with Craig Berube is coming up next. It's brought to you by our pals at coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. We know sports are back around the globe, and along with all the free sports and casino games, coolbet.co now has daily betting odds and line reports covering all of the day's action. You can check them out at coolbet.co. You got to be 19 years old to play. And as always, Coolbet reminds you, stay cool, bet responsibly. All right, great to have St. Louis Blues head coach Craig Berube joining us on the Ray and Dregs hockey podcast. And Craig, we'll get to what life was like in the bubble for you and the Blues and the disappointment, obviously not being able to defend the Stanley Cup championship. But we'd be remiss, obviously, if we didn't talk about what's happening now in the NHL. And as we record episode 39 of Ray and Dregs, the National Hockey League postponing its playoff games Thursday and Friday night. Difficult decisions, a show of solidarity by NHL players. The National Hockey League fully supports its NHL players, hence the postponement of these games. I assume that you, as an NHL head coach, understand, appreciate, and fully support this direction by the league as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the league and the players have taken an active stand even before this recent incident, and they're just following up on it. I mean, I fully support it. I think, the players are doing a great job, plus the league in, making a stand. This stuff's got to stop, obviously, and, they're doing the right thing.
Craig, your St. Louis Blues got bumped out in the first round here. And, in the post talk of it, one thing I found really interesting was Doug Armstrong, your general manager, mentioned 20% of your guys had COVID prior to getting to Edmonton. Like that was stunning to me, because it must have set your training back, your camp back quite some bit with so many people not available.
Well, yeah, and some of the players that got are pretty important players. Not that every player is not important, but you guys understand that. So very, some real good players for us. Unfortunately, got sick. It takes quite a toll on them, and even at the playoffs, the tournament, they still weren't feeling, 100%. There's a lot of lasting effects that they had, but in saying that, you can't really use excuses. We didn't perform well enough as a team to move on. That's the bottom line. It really is. We needed we needed more players to play better, and it just wasn't there.
What were your, and I guess by your expectations, I guess everybody the same. What were your expectations coming in, knowing your guys had been off for 4 months, and like, is that really the Blues team coming back, or is it just a bunch of guys wearing the Blues sweaters? Like, did you have expectation to repeat? Did you think, I don't know how this is going to go? Where were you?
Well, we obviously do. You want to win. Anytime you suit up and yourself as a former player, like, you want to win, you want to do well. I think, that wasn't, I was a little bit unsure, I guess. I thought the round robin games we'd get, they were kind of like, I was thinking, well, we can get going here with these round robin games. I wasn't really too concerned about the seeding of it. I just wanted to play good hockey. And I was concerned after the round robin, to be honest with you, because we didn't play very good hockey in the round robin. We played spurts of good hockey, but I didn't see enough going into playing Vancouver, who's a young, hungry team with some very good, talented players on it. So I was concerned. And but obviously we went there to win. And, we tied it up 2-2 in that series. I felt pretty good about our team. Jake Allen played good games 3 and 4, and we get up 3-1 in game 5. I just let it slip away. And I think that was the difference. Obviously in game 6, they had way more momentum than we had.
Yeah, you bring up Jake Allen, who did come in and do a real nice job, and then you lose the game 5 and you go back to Jordan Binnington. Can you let us know about the decision? Because it obviously was a tough one and a critical one. And you go back to the Stanley Cup winning Binnington, who just didn't have it. It didn't show up for him. What went into that for you, Craig?
Okay. Well, games 3 and 4, obviously Jake played well, so I was going to play him in game 5, which I did. I didn't like a couple of the goals that went in, but in saying that, I thought Binner had some good practice time and work with the goalie coach. He's always come through for us. So for me, it wasn't a difficult decision, to be honest with you. I expect a lot out of Binner. I trust him. He's done it for us in the past. He's done it for us throughout this next year. He's always come up big in big games. So it's a big game. I went with him. It didn't work out.
So when you start thinking, and you've probably done a lot of that, about next season and moving forward with the St. Louis Blues, I mean, number one, you've got 2 concerns. One would be the health of Vladimir Tarasenko. I mean, what a loss. I mean, this guy just comes through a lengthy injury / rehab, and back into surgery he goes. So that's going to be a process. And talk about that, and also the uncertainty of your captain, Alex Pietrangelo. As a coach, there's not much you can do about that when contracts expire and the negotiations have to take place between the organization and the player. But those are 2 pretty big pieces that the head coach shouldn't want or have to worry about.
Yeah, well, start with Vladdy first. They're very unfortunate. I mean, I thought he was on the right path, throughout camp. He actually looked good. He was skating well. Got to the round robin series. His game wasn't quite where he wanted it or I wanted it. He didn't feel good for whatever reason. Something wasn't feeling right. So, it didn't work out there. He gets reevaluated. Now he's got to have another surgery. It's very concerning. This guy has not played much hockey lately, and it's been, a few surgeries on the same shoulder. So it is concerning going into next season with him. So, we wish him all the best, and we need him. So we got to get him back and get him healthy and get him playing again for sure. It's going to be tough. Like he's got a lot of work ahead of him, and we got to do our best to help him out. That's for sure. So in saying that, that's what him, Pietrangelo, I mean, you know what Petro means to our team and our organization. This guy's been there from day one. He's the captain of our team. We don't win the cup without him last year. He was a great player for us. And he's going forward, I hope he's a Blue and a great player for the rest of his career. That's just what I want, and I think that's what everybody wants. But I can't control that, and, we'll see what happens here. But I sure hope that it works out.
So Craig, you're now in your off season, which is so weird, like everything else in 2020. I mean, it's August and into September here. And what will you do for the next couple of months? And as you prepare for whenever training camp might start for the 2021 season?
Yeah, I come back home in Philly, Ray, and my family's here, kids. So, I'll be here with them, spending time doing things. But, I'll probably jump back to St. Louis at some point too here, and just, meet with Doug Armstrong and stay connected there and what's going on with the team. We talk pretty much daily anyhow, but, and then, just kind of wait for a date to come out and get prepared for camp. Coaching staff and I we've already discussed things about next year and what we can do better. And you always got to find ways to get better and to do things a little bit differently. I found that one thing I really found coming into that playoff tournament this year was just the lack of energy our team had. I didn't think the energy level was high enough. And, I thought the energy level was very good throughout the season. We had a real good year. They were feeding off last year's Stanley Cup and looking forward to repeating. I think it's important that I find ways and our organization finds ways to make sure that energy level's high next year at the start of the season. That's very important for me.
And then look, Craig, during this off season, and we don't know how long officially it's going to be. I mean, every NHL club has a strength and conditioning staff, and they're always in tune on a daily, certainly a weekly basis with players. How involved do you get in that process when you're talking about, you've got an expectation of the energy level, the conditioning level being a premium when training camp opens? So how actively involved would you be?
Very active. I probably set the standards, I guess, for our strength coach and what I want from him and what I want from our players, and demand, certain things when they come into camp, just the type of shape they have to be in. And it's important to me. I think it's a huge thing. I really do. I don't take it lightly when it comes to that kind of stuff, and we expect a lot out of our guys.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to it, especially the start of the 2020-21 season, whenever that is. Greg, thanks for doing this. We appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, guys, for having me on, and, take care and good luck with everything.
Yeah, be well, Craig. Thanks, eh?
Yep, you too. See ya. Bye.
Ray, that's one of the few interviews that we do on the Ray and Dregs podcast or have done that had a bit more of a serious feel to it. Because normally, with ex-players, I mean, Craig Berube was a very impactful player, obviously, during his days in the NHL. He's a terrific NHL head coach. I always want to know about the exchanges and the experiences that player had with Ray Ferraro. And
there were no exchanges, me and him, I'll tell you that. No chance. He scared the hell out of me.
Did he?
Well, remember, he had the long hair. In Philly there, like, in particular, like, not that he was any less scary in Washington, but, like, in Philly, there was, like, a crew of them. And it's like they could all skate.
Yeah.
Like, they could get to you. The guys that couldn't skate didn't worry me so much. The guys that could, they worried me a little bit. So it's funny. I had a lot less to say around guys like him.
Well, again, playing that Flyers team, you had the skill set and the aggressiveness of Rick Tocchet. Go through their roster. I mean, there were so many of a similar type of player.
Okay,
man.
Here's another thing, Dregs. So back in the Spectrum, right, when the Flyers would play, they'd always, where they played, they always had guys like Craig Berube or Dave Brown, Talk, and they'd lurk at center ice in warm-up. And the neutral zone seemed to be getting smaller all the time. And this honestly is the truth. If your puck, say you're stick handling, and the puck went off your stick, and it went just over the red line, I'd have to take a quick evaluation of who was around there. If it was Pelly Eklund, I'd grab the puck back. If it was one of those other guys, I'll just go get another one. I'm not going over there. Are you kidding me?
I don't blame you. And now, so Craig Berube doesn't strike me as being chirpy out there. He didn't
Not at
have
all.
to be. Like he's not yipping you unless you're sitting on the bench and you've done something stupid that's offended him, or you've taken advantage of a vulnerable Flyer Capitals player. And he's probably even then not chirping you. He's just looking at you and scaring the bejesus out of you. Just
It's amazing. It's amazing how quickly you can make your eyes go somewhere else. Oh, I didn't know he was staring at me. But like every once in a while, a player like Craig would just, a face-off would be right in front of the bench, and he'd turn around, or they would turn around and just look at whoever was chirping away.
Yeah.
And that pretty much was it.
So let me ask you here, because he's a very successful NHL head coach. He's coming off a Stanley Cup championship. Rick Tocchet is a very good NHL head coach. Those players that played the game as well as those two men played and were tough as nails. Does that translate and have an influence on their coaching ability? If you're sitting in that Arizona dressing room, or in this case, in the St. Louis dressing room, are you looking at Coach Craig Berube, Coach Rick Tocchet with pure respect and admiration, more so because you know how hard they played the game and they earned that level of respect?
I think initially they come in and they carry something with them that makes the players understand that this guy has fought and scrapped and played and earned his way to this position. And the one thing I would say about both Rick Tocchet and Craig Berube is it's not like they just showed up and started to coach at the NHL. Like, they had to work their way through.
Paid their dues, for sure.
Paid their dues to get there. I just thought of this. Remember when we had Keith Jones on?
Yeah. And
Jonesy said the guys were calling him Don King all the time because he was setting up fights for Craig. The guy'd be like, Jones, I'm gonna kill you, and Jonesy would say, "No, I'm not gonna fight you, but I got a guy that will." And he'd go get Craig. But he also spoke about how Craig was always really sharp about the game. And my son Landon played for Craig for a half a year in Chicago in the American League before he injured his knee, and says nothing but amazing things about what a person Craig is and what a coach he is and how much he enjoyed playing for him.
So, like, I've got average size man hands. I would say medium to smallish. I think your hands are about the same size.
Oh, mine are small. I get small hands.
So, I mean, you probably shook the hand of Craig Berube, when safe to do so, 50 times.
Bear trap.
Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He's not even trying. And number one, he could probably wrap his hand around our hands twice, but he's not even trying. They're like hams. They're like these big meaty hams on the end of his wrists. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah. And it's funny to think of him like that. I read a great story that one morning, one of the coaches walked into the Blues, the players' lounge.
Yeah.
And they were all gathered around a computer watching a bunch of Craig's fight tapes. And they were like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, they had no idea really to the extent of how tough Craig was as a player.
Tough dude. All right. Have you got time for a few questions? It's
it looks like they're there. Yeah, I see them.
Ask Ray and Dregs anything. And we've got a fresh batch this week, compliments of our Instagram channels. So thanks for doing that. You can send them always to Ask Ray and Dregs or at Ray and Dregs if you prefer. That works nice as well. We talked about the goalies a little bit earlier, Ray. Lyle wants to know which UFA goalie, he's being specific to Holtby or Robin Lehner, do you expect to command the biggest contract this offseason? And which teams are the likeliest destinations for both those guys? So you maybe don't have to list them all off. Because as we talked about earlier in the podcast, Jamie McLennan and Noodles named off like 8 to 10 teams. I'm going to throw Markstrom into that trio. Because
Markstrom's the top earner in that trio.
He would be, wouldn't he? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Age, kind of momentum of what's going on. I would say there's some questions about Holtby and a declining save percentage of difficult shots as well. Lehner, sometimes to me, he looks awkward in the net, but he stops the puck.
Yeah,
he's not a super athletic goaltender, but he's big and he seems to be able, he stops the puck at an incredibly high rate. Mm-hmm. I would say a better team might be a better fit for Leonard. I don't know how well he does when the play gets a little scrambly. I'm thinking Holtby's in a 2 to 3 year range max. And I would say 3 years for Leonard. I don't know that we're going to see teams blow out 4 and 5 and 6 year deals this year, Dregs.
Probably not.
Given the flat cap and the uncertainty of what revenues are going to look like going forward.
All right. Another question here. What NHL coach or general manager do we believe is on the hottest seat right now? And why are there so few new coaches / GMs in the league and so much recycling of the old guys? Well, I'll answer that in part. I mean, that's age old, isn't it? I mean, we're starting to see new coaches come into the NHL, and it can be a copycat league in that respect. I mean, there was a stretch a few years ago where teams were promoting their American League guys, and so everybody then promoted their American League guys. And you look at Chicago brings Jeremy Colleton in. I mean, that wasn't recycling, especially when you're replacing the legendary coach Joel Quenneville. Hot seats, that's a good question. I don't know that we know just yet. What's happening in Calgary? There's a lot of disappointment in Calgary over the fact that they lost out again in the first round. If Tampa Bay, even though Tampa Bay just thumped the Boston Bruins, if the Tampa Bay Lightning end up losing to the Boston Bruins, I mean, at some point we do have to wonder how much longer John Cooper has on the bench for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Mm-hmm. Washington just fired its coach. So, beyond that, I don't know that there are teams that are obviously considering doing something aside from the ones that have already done something.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. There's always more change than you think there has been. Like, you just went through a couple scenarios, and even though Todd Reirden was just let go last week, you're like, oh yeah, Washington needs a new coach. Pittsburgh needs a whole set of assistants.
Yeah, because
they fired their assistant coaches behind Mike Sullivan. As far as why the recycling, well, the newness of the coach is often tied to the newness of the general manager. And at some point, it's really difficult, I think, if I'm owning a team, to hire you, Dregs, and you've had no experience managing an NHL team or a professional sports team. I think that's a real hindrance, that even if I wanted new thought, I've got to have some experience too, don't I? And so I don't know how you balance that out. I think it's really difficult. There are a crew of new coaches through college ranks that some have gone to the American League that are just not that far outside the NHL. And, your coaches, the old guard, if you will, they're in their mid to late 50s. And, they're the ones that are getting pushed by these younger guys. They're the ones that are going to be in competition with the Nate Laymans and such from college hockey, and some of the younger coaches that have paid their dues as assistant coaches that are ready to take over a bench.
All right, last question. Ask Ray and Dregs anything from Donald. Wants to know if we think that some, if not most, of the players involved in the 8 remaining teams of the Stanley Cup playoffs have had enough of life in the bubble. And I don't know if all, but I know through player agents and whatnot, and a few players directly, the bubble is old. The bubble is old. You're in it to win it, no pun intended, and that's why you're going to, continue to do what you do and live life inside that very restrictive environment. But I'm hearing a lot of grumbling about the bubble now. It's getting old.
Okay, Drake. So in a normal year, we go to the World Championships. We're in a beautiful European city for 3.5 weeks. We can go wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
If I see your face, if you see my face one more time when we're going for our walks, oh my God, it's like that. And we can go anywhere.
Yep.
But you're in the same hotel. And we know how lucky we are to be in those cities to see what we see. But you're like, man, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I want to, and those guys can't go anywhere. I absolutely think that they're worn down by this. Of course they are. You know what? This round will seem like the longest round because once you get through it, you're 8 wins away. And I think you can find a little more motivation, a little more energy. But Craig Berube, has talked to us about finding energy and how hard it was to spark that energy in this tournament.
Good stuff. Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Weekly on the podcast, presented by our friends at Sure Health from Green Shield Canada. Visit them online at surehealth.ca or call 1-844-855-SURE. Welcome back to the Ray and Dregs podcast to our friends at Sure Health. Check them out, surehealth.ca. All right, Ray, week look like for you coming up, my friend? We're feverishly planning episode 40, not entirely sure what direction we're going to go. Hopefully it's mostly about hockey, but in the meantime, just a lot of golf and hanging around for you.
Actually, we're going to go away for 5 days. It's kind of a last thing before school, which is going to start here in British Columbia around the 10th of September. We're trying to gather as much information as we can to that. And then I've got that knee replacement surgery coming up. So it's going to be my last chance to be mobile for a while. And so we're going to go away for 5 or 6 days before the start of everything getting rolling.
Now, this might be an obvious question / concern, but I mean, you don't recuperate from that in a couple of weeks, right? Like, so your golf season ends
finished
with that surgery?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now, Darren Pang, who is a great buddy and a fiendish golfer, told me he played at 8 weeks after surgery. Said it was not a very smart thing to do, but he really had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm hopeful that I'll be pretty mobile by December 1st.
Now, is it like a titanium joint, or is it like a cow bone? Like what happens?
It's a mechanical joint. It's not, you're not taking something from somebody else no, it's a mechanical joint. It's funny. You know what I have in my head is, you remember the movie The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
And when the Tin Man gets caught in the rain and they got to oil him up.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you get, when you come out of knee replacement surgery, if they give you a little tin of oil and you like WD-40 and you just go, ee. And so everybody tells me when I get this, my first thought will be, once the initial uncomfortability goes away, is, man, why didn't I do this sooner? I'm 7 surgeries in on my left knee. There's nothing left to do. So I'm hopeful that it'll be much better.
You'll be chewing on Cererosil like candies, right?
Boy. Can you imagine Cammy? Poor Cammy. Oh, I'm useless at the best of times. And now can you get me? Can you grab me? Can you,
See, I'm actually looking forward to it, because you're arguably at your best when you're agitated and surly. So I'm guessing by episode 42, 41, that would be week 2, week 3 of you convalescing, that you've had enough. And I think the podcast is going to benefit from that.
You might be shocked by this, Dregs. I do tend to get a little impatient with my rehab. And so, there'll be that's the biggest. I just want it to go fast, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
All right, buddy. Well, we wish you the best of luck. Get well, and I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Well, thanks, Dregs. I see you got a few more things unpacked. You're getting there. You're getting there behind you. And I'm sure it's not finished, and that's probably part of the next week for you, eh?
Yeah, I mean, this is my master bedroom dresser behind me. So the office clearly isn't set up yet. Good people. Dan Berube, who is my contractor, is finishing up the inside renovation, and then we'll progress to the outside renovation by episode 40. So,
well, maybe you can get Dan to fix that clock behind you. You're a couple of minutes slow there.
You know, so I did about 17 live hits on Thursday as news was breaking that the National Hockey League was postponing. Two things. I had one of our associate producers tell me that he thought I had something hanging out of my right nostril, right?
Yeah, sure.
Puffy, Sean Puffy Cameron sends me a text. He goes, check your right nostril. I mean, anyway, I didn't. It was the shadow because I didn't have proper lighting. And then Jeff Mott, another producer at TSN, says, you gotta fix your clock.
See, there you go.
Attention to detail. It's all about the details, right? Have a good week, my friend.
You too, Dregs. Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right, a big shout out and thank you to all of our partners that make the podcast possible. Tim Hortons, their wildly popular NHL Superstar collectible sticks are back for a limited time. Sid, Connor, Ovi, Carey Price among the collectible locker boxes. You can get them in store, at the drive-thru, or via the Tim Hortons app. Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino game website. Thank you, coolbet.co. Boston Pizza, we're going to see you soon on the BP patio. Dewar Performance Denim, use code RAY for 15% off site-wide at dewar.ca. SureHealth.ca, welcome back. Call SureHealth at 1-844-855-SURE. Image Optometry, visit image.ca, get new glasses, pay online with your vision care benefits. And you can now find our podcast, Ray and Dregs. Subscribe to it on YouTube as we're doing it on video each week. So please check us out there. Thanks to Aaron the Tech Johnson for producing the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. And another big weekly thank you to our pal Tony Ferraro for providing the music you hear each week on the pod as well. Be well, everybody. Look forward to you tuning in and us having fun next week, episode 40.